see there are some people who are from industry or maybe still students. So I just want to give a disclaimer before I begin. So what I would be doing today is more on the lines of no, I'm taking the I'm sharing the concepts of leadership in the context of academic pharmacologists. So the session is directed more towards someone who is probably assistant professor, associate professor, professor, or HOD in an academic setting. So wherever you are sitting in academia and you are interacting with students, it could be MBBS students, it could be PDS, it could be MD, whatever it is. So the whole session is targeted towards that audience, but that doesn't mean that others need not attend. So the concepts or the principles of leadership that I take you through today are also or can be applicable in other settings as well. But today's context or the slide deck is prepared for academic pharmacologists in particular. So let's proceed with that context then. So it's about how to develop my PG student as a leader. So why did I, try to put it like this is I know that many of my peers in academia would like to say, okay, so I need to develop myself as a leader. I need to develop myself in my management skills, etc., etc. But the trick, the simple part is, how do I become a leader? So as it's a very simple thing. So you don't need to become, you don't need to train in some advanced courses. You don't need to go to Harvard or Stanford to become a leader. So if you have some people who are listening to you and if you help them to grow, yeah, then automatically you are becoming a leader. So a true leader develops more leaders, not followers. So if you're successful in nurturing more students in like leaders, then you are already becoming automatically a leader. So starting with a disclaimer, today's content is a mixture of my experiences and well acknowledged leadership concepts. The content not necessarily represent practices and positions of my current or past employer. This is only an attempt to share my knowledge and experiences with my peers and fellow pharmacologists. Having said that, the concepts presented today are only one perspective of leadership. This doesn't mean that this is carved in stone. This is the only way to become a leader. I'm not saying that. There can be different ways and means of how to develop your leadership skills. So now, when I start looking into the if I have to, I don't like to do this, but if I have to really stereotype, the our academicians in general, but in a good way. I don't want to demean anyone. So we have good teachers, and then we have neutral teachers, and then we have great teachers. So in my session today, the purpose of sharing all these things is like those people who are either neutral or like more towards open-minded. I would like to become a leader. I would like to develop leaders. So this is for the content is for those kind of people. So it is your choice to decide if you want to, like you see on the left hand side of the screen. So if you want to be a leader who can develop more leaders, can make people around them more happy, or the other traditional stereotype is I want to be a control freak. So I would like to see in control. I want to teach my students by fear, about pharmacology, etc. It is completely fine. It is your choice. I'm only sharing my experiences. If you think that some of the concepts that you see in today's session are complete nonsense, it's completely fine. You can reject them. So there is nothing wrong in that. So let's start with this. So there is a famous speaker or motivational speaker leader called Simon Sinek, who says, whenever you are doing anything or whenever you are thinking about something, you put a framework of these three. at 3 dimensions. So why, what, and how. So if we put that on the leadership context, so why is there a need for leadership in academia? So we will see in next few minutes about why there is such need for leadership. And then we will also see what does the true leadership look like. And we will also go a little bit about how to become such leader. So let's go through the why, the what, and the how of becoming a leader in academia. So starting with, why is there a need for leadership in academia? So I'm trying to make this a bit interactive. So on the screen, I guess you can see now a picture, a photograph with two people. So clearly these two people are Indians. So can anyone tell me who these two people are? I'm looking at the comments here. So if you can see these two pictures, this picture and two individuals, please type in the comments below. Who are these people? Does anyone know? I was told that there will be a bit of lag between when people send comments and then by the time I see the comments here. So I'll wait a little bit patiently. Okay, looks like it may not be so interactive because of this lag in interaction. So I'll get going. Probably will end up as a more didactic, but I'll try to take the comments at the end as well. So what you see on the screen is a couple. So the younger one is Kalam, APJ Kalam, and the elder one is Dr. Sarabhai. Right, correct. So if you see, we all know Kalam as the rocket man of India, the great scientist, and then the president, right? So, and he's also a great teacher. So if you look back into the history of APJ Kalam, uh, you know what was the reason, who inspired him to become like this? So for all those people who became great leaders, there's always a mentor or a leader or a teacher behind them. So for it is for those people who know Kalam sir, so they know that he's inspired and mentored by Sarabhai. And then now you see another picture here. So let's see how many of you can identify who this person is. So I'll just give probably a gap of maybe 5 to 7 seconds before I get back to my monologue. Okay, so this person is James Allison, who received Nobel Prize in 2018 for his work in immuno-oncology space. So this is a very recent example. He is a fantastic physician scientist, and when you look into what happened to the people who were his students, who were his PhD students, postdoc students. So this is what I found. So there was an article which you can also see. The link is available in the bottom. So there is an article which writes about 5 to 6 people who were students, the past students of Dr. Allison, and where they are doing now, what they are doing now, and where are they located, where and how well they are doing. So you can see the people who were working in James Allison lab have really made in very diverse eminent spaces. There are some people who are leader of immune regulation research at a policy level making. There are some people who are working in leading innovative pharmaceutical companies, and then there are people who are completely in cancer research in prestigious institutes as chair. So if you are a great person in academia, and if you adopt this leadership and then inspire more students, so you are basically creating more and more leaders who will basically change the society, community, and the world, whatever they are working with. So that's the idea basically. So then let's move to the next one. So what does true leadership look like? So I took this framework again just to demonstrate, talk a little bit about different components of an individual. So this is a Venn diagram which has EQ, IQ, and personality. So we all have this component, as soon as we probably get into the real world. Okay, so let me take a step back and explain what this means. So IQ is basically something that you read, learn, and understand. So this is like pharmacology, therapeutics, research, etc. And EQ is more on emotional intelligence. So there are four different aspects in emotional intelligence as described by Daniel Goleman: self-awareness, social awareness, relationship management, etc. And then a lot of soft skills and behavior component of an individual. I mentioned four C's there, but you'll see in next few slides what these four C's are. And then the third part is personality. So personality is something that is very inherent to yourself. So IQ is something which can be easily acquired. So this is the easiest component. You read, you sit, you read books, you attend lectures, you attend workshops, conferences, you absorb knowledge. Okay, so that's relatively easy to acquire an IQ. Compared to EQ, EQ is slightly difficult to acquire because it doesn't come just simply by listening or doing. It has to be practiced. So you will hear about some communication skills, or maybe, for example, today leadership skills, but then you will only become more efficient in your EQ if you take those concepts and then practice in your daily life. And the more and more you practice, the better you will get at in your EQ, and then your EQ component will also increase. And then the third dimension is personality. So here personality is something that you are. So no one can change. So either you are an introvert or you are an extrovert. So if you are an introvert, then you are an introvert, whatever it is. So no one can change an introvert into extrovert. Maybe some behaviors may change, but at the core you will always remain introvert, or at the core you will always remain extrovert. So that's basically the explanation of this slide. But then how does the true leadership look like? So a true leadership always looks like, you on the IQ component, when you get into the real world, be it academia, research, or industry. So on the IQ, there is only a specific amount of IQ that is required to do your, whatever professional activities. You don't need 90%, 95%, or 99% of IQ. So I'm just, using arbitrary numbers. So if there is like 50 to 60% of IQ in a particular subject, that is good enough to survive in the real world. But then the EQ, for example, has to be at least double or triple to the your IQ levels, if you really want to shine, survive, thrive, and then become a leader. So a true leadership really looks like someone who has a phenomenal amount of emotional quotient, emotional intelligence, who are really good in soft skills, various soft skills, and then who really know how to manage themselves, and how to manage the surroundings around them, and then how to maintain those relationships. So that's how the true leadership looks like. So, okay, fine, we have seen why there is a need, and then what does the true leadership look like. Let's spend some time about how to become or develop such a leader. So in the next 2 to 3 slides, I'll take you through, in a context that, for example, if I am, let's say, a professor in some ex medical college, and I have 2 to 3 PG students with whom I need to work on. So consider that you are taking these concepts and then you are trying to implement them on your PG students, but that doesn't mean that you yourself cannot try it. You can also do it on your own. So feel free to try it on your own, or feel free to try it on your students, but they will be helpful on either ways, either on your students or on yourself directly. So how do I start? So when you see a student, traditionally what happens is, this is how I think, like I said, this is all my personal opinion. I may be wrong as well in most of the cases. So if let's say I'm a professor and I have a new first year PG, so what typically happens is, like, okay, so this person has just finished his or her MBBS, and then they just started, they don't know anything. I need to teach him or her pharmacology, I need to teach him behavioral skills, I need to teach him competencies, etc., etc. So that is how we all typically start. But then, the evolving concepts of leadership, what they say is, give a benefit of doubt, take it other way around. Okay, so you believe in your student, your starting point should be, okay, so I believe that my student is competent, is interested to learn, and then let me help him to grow. Okay, so you believe that your student can do something positive, and then try to understand what this the student has a lot of, different students have different choices and, interests, right? So someone might be interested in pharmacogenetics, someone pharmacovigilance, someone in purely teaching. So just spend some time with your student to really understand what they really like. So, in one of the TED talks, I saw that, the more innovative teaching model, and these TED talks are coming from US, Europe, and, all over. So it should not be teacher centric, teacher or subject centric teaching methodology. It has to be student centric. So it's not about, you are in MD pharmacology, you need to learn about MD pharmacology. So flip that over and then try to say, okay, so this student has joined MD pharmacology. Let's see which part of pharmacology is this student interested in, and let's grow him. So it's kind of a positive leadership or positive nurturing. So once you understand what this person is interested in, so try to set an ambitious goal. So one example is, so let's say there is one PG student, he is very interested in practicing clinical pharmacology. So this can be something like this. So if I really understand that he really wants to be a clinical pharmacologist in a hospital setting, okay, so who are the people who are already working in this space? So there is someone that immediately comes to my mind is Subhrajyoti Bhaumik. So most of the people on IMPAS are aware of him. So he is currently doing a phenomenal job as clinical pharmacologist. So if I'm a student, if I'm a professor with my student who want to go into that space, so what I'll do is, okay, so this is a guy or maybe 2 to 3 people who are working in clinical pharmacology space like Subhrajyoti Bhaumik, and then connect these two people. So let the student go and talk to these people, and then try to understand what does clinical pharmacology space looks like in a hospital setting. And then whatever Shubro is doing right now, so pick some of those activities and then give it to your student. So this is your goal. You have 3 years time space, and if you really want to become like someone like Subhrajyoti Bhaumik, see what he's doing, try to do that. So use these 2 to 3 years to do 1 or 2 activities that a clinical pharmacologist is already doing. Okay, and then, so once you set that ambitious goal, you need to plan backwards. As a teacher, now this is where my role as a teacher or as a professor comes in. So okay, so you are here 3 years, and probably take out 1 year in it. So in 2 years period, in 24 months, you need to complete 2 activities related to clinical pharmacology, and these are the 2 activities. So if you have to complete those 2 by end of 2 years, so what you should be doing in 3 months before that and 6 months before that, etc., etc. So plan backwards and then start from day one like that. And then it's not only about setting some, connecting the people. So you need to, as a teacher or as a professor, you really need to invest time and efforts diligently. Unless you really do it wholeheartedly, it's not going to help. So connecting, identifying who are the people who are in that space, and then connecting the dots, giving what kind of goals make sense for this student in this interest space, and then helping him or her to really work on those kind of projects. So that can really help. If you as a teacher, you can really invest time and efforts diligently. So that's the framework overall. But then how does this look like in practice? So if I'm talking to, I'm just picking an example from one of the people who are watching here. So Ram Mohan sir is my senior, right? So let's say, after this session, Ram Mohan sir will give me a call and say that, everything that you said is nice, rosy, but what does it look like? I have a student and then he wants to grow in certain area, but how do I get started? So what I thought is, I basically pulled a couple of tools which can help you guys to put these leadership concepts in practical perspective. So the secret recipe that I call as a secret recipe is projects. So when we see a PG student in academia, you have 3 years. The first thing that we really put on the head of this PG student is finish your thesis, submit your thesis topic in 6 months from now, and then there are some conferences coming up. Are you presenting something? Do something. So rather than putting such pressure on this, so let's talk about something called as a project. And then when I say project, this is truly in a terms or definitions which happen outside academia. You can take about how projects are run in, let's say, for example, WHO space, or projects which are run in pharmaceutical space, or projects which run in life sciences space, something like that. So I'll get in a moment in about the details of the anatomy of projects that I'm talking about. So you give you basically help students to design projects which student can execute in that 1 to 2 years, which can be in the same line of interest of the student. Okay, but if you really want to, so this is the trick. So you don't want to do the projects for the IQ purposes. So you want the students to do projects for the EQ purposes, right? So all those soft skills and different aspects of leadership that you want to inculcate in your students. So if you want to do that for the EQ quotient, so then I have put certain criteria. So when the student is selecting a project, it has to be a real problem. Do not go for bookish problems. People need to really go out of the department, talk to people in medical college, in the hospital, or in 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 the surroundings, and then let them scout and really pick a real problem that people are actually suffering right now. But it should not involve a drug, because it's very easy for us to fall into the trap of pharmacology, right? So the moment we say that we'll do a project and then we'll do a project about a drug, then you can do that, but automatically the whole mindset will fall into the IQ component. So if you really want to push and retain the project in the EQ space, do not involve a drug in that project, and it should be done with a team. And the team should, maybe the team members can be about like 3 to 5 people or maybe 6 people, but the team should have only one doctor. So your PG student should not pair up with another doctor to do that project. It has to be someone who is non-clinical or paramedic, or I don't know, IT guys, or BSc, MSc, MPharm, doesn't matter. But in the team there should be only one doctor, and that one doctor should be the PG student. So let's see few components of the EQ which can be incorporated into the project. So the first part is C, the choice. So this is where we will go into the 4 C's that I mentioned in one of my previous slide about EQ. So the first part is choice. So the choice is give complete freedom to the PG student to pick a problem, a project, an interest of completely his or her choice. Okay. And then in this project, they need to collaborate with other people. So when I say collaborate, it means talking to people who are actually facing this problem, talking to people who are within the team, and then trying to solve these problems. Is communication. So collaboration and communication really go hand in hand, because when you're collaborating with people around, that is when you will develop the team skills, team management skills. The student will develop how, if I am in a team, how do I work in such a way that my team members will be benefited? How can I lead a group of people uh, so that the whole team can move towards a common goal. And then when you are collaborating like that, automatically you are communicating with them within the team, and when you're representing the team, you will be communicating with people outside, talking to different departments, for example, or maybe some other companies, or other shops, other associations, whatever it is, depending on the problem. And then the next one is critical thinking. So this is where I think I read in one of this internet article. I'll also give you a link about this. So the critical thinking and problem solving. So these two go hand in hand, and when you are picking a real problem, so your goal in this project is basically to solve this problem. So one of the key critical aspect of leadership is be it in academia or academic research or in the industry, not necessarily in the industry, but pharmaceutical industry, but you take any industry. For example, I saw an interview by Indra Nui, the CEO of PepsiCo. So the greatest attribute of these leaders is people go to these leaders with problems, and the true leadership comes out when this leader is able to break down this big problem into smaller problems, and then make it simple, and then try to come up with creative solutions which can be addressed for these smaller problems, thereby you are actually solving the big problem for a big community. So this article that I read, and also about the TED talk, for which you can see the link in the bottom of the screen here. So the 4 C's are creativity, critical thinking, communication, and collaboration. So in this article, they mentioned that these 4 C's are the most essential skill sets that is required in 21st century. So this is what people are saying. So if we are trying to develop our students to learn everything about pharmacology, Goodman and Gilman, end to end, but then if we are not making them to collaborate properly, communicate properly, not thinking creatively, and not solving problems, not critically thinking about issues, I'm sorry to say you are basically producing a bunch of incompetent people. So if I'm a teacher or a professor, I would like to generate and develop more leaders, not incompetent people, right? So that is how the project framework would look like. And I just you'll all get this slide deck later. So this is a sample project charter. So when students are trying to identify problems and then put some structure around it, so this is just a template. There are more templates that can be used, but here you have a project lead, coach, and team members. Then you will have to describe, and this is a very simple one slider, right? So a topic of the project and description, and the problem statement, and what is the objective. So the best is you pick only one specific problem. So there can be a lot of problems around your vicinity. Just try to pick one specific problem, and there has to be only one answer, not one answer, but only one objective in solving that problem. And then the deliverable is something which is an expected solution to that problem, and the impact is how does this solution, if we solve this problem, how is it benefiting the community or the group of people who are suffering this problem, and then a target completion date. So again, there is also one more checklist that I'll share with you guys. Is called as This is called as Tegenzi's checklist for leadership competencies with a coaching framework. This checklist has its origin in Germany. So Tegernsee is a beautiful lake in Bavarian Alps. So so again, here you will see these the 4 C's, including the first C, choice. So there are a set of questions that when a student picks up on some topic. So the coach, so when I say coach, so coach is you as a professor, as an assistant or associate professor, you are the coach. So there are certain instructions here. So coach will only ask questions and let the student figure out answers. Never ever give answers to a student. Once a student finds answer, it is the student who will check if the answer is right or wrong. And if many times a student will not be able to find an answer. The student will struggle to find an answer, and maybe they will come with a wrong answer. That's completely fine. So failures are essential parts of steps of becoming a leader. So let them go out, face the real world, pick up real problems, come back, let them come back to the coach, to you, and then all you need to do is ask more questions and then tell them if they are right or wrong. That's it. But don't give them answers. And then there are certain questions in each of the competencies. So the choice: is it a real problem? Critical thinking: are you able to perform a root cause analysis, include using some well-known techniques like 5 whys? And then, are you able to identify and write down at least 3 to 5 such activities? You break down the root cause analysis and try to see what are the different components of this big problem, and then try to come up with some solutions to different aspects of this problem. And then while doing so, did you talk to these people who are facing the problem? And then you will come up with a solution, but you are not solving the problem for your coach or for yourself. As a student, you are supposed to solve the problem for someone who is outside. So go and talk to them. So if I come up with this solution, does it make sense to your problem? Is your problem getting solved? So it's a checklist. The document as such is in the PDF format. It is embedded in the slide deck, and then you will see it once we share the screen. So I know this is still an abstract, and unless you put this into practice, it's not so easy. So on today's session, if you need any help in terms of some advising on setting up projects, I'm happy to help. You can contact me via email or LinkedIn. These are the two preferred modes of contact, and I'm happy to help there to any professors or associate professors who would like to go through this path of projects and developing the leadership competencies. So I'm coming more towards. So I would like to leave a couple of thoughts. So education is not learning of facts, but training of mind to think. And then the true leadership lies in guiding others to success, in ensuring that everyone is performing at their best, doing the work they are pledged to do, and do it well. So I think this is my last but one slide. I also want to mention a little bit about success stories. So I have seen 3 types of people. So there are some students there are these evolving student stories who are basically trying out something different than what a typical MD pharmacologist student. I'm stereotyping here again. I'm sorry for that, but you get into a college, you read Goodman Gilman, you do these practicals, animal experiments or bioassays, and then you write internal assessment exams, you vomit everything, you complete your thesis and go out. So these are the students who have done something different than others. So that doesn't, I'm not saying not to do theses or not to present papers, do that, but then on top of it, try to do something which is atypical, so that your mind will start thinking more diversely and more laterally. And Shweta Surve, Rachana Salvi, and Ravindra Honrao are those people who are still in the student phase, but then they have already started trying different things. And then there are some people who are proven student stories. So Amit Dang, Shubhrajyoti are my contemporaries, and I know them since like 10, 12 years now. When I was a student, I know that these people, for a fact, that they have always tried something different, and you can see what they're doing right now. So one is a fantastic entrepreneur, the other one is doing quite well in clinical pharmacology space. He in a way, he's pioneering the role of clinical pharmacologist in India. And Pavitra and Manthan, so these people are a little bit junior, but I know for sure personally that these people have tried something different, and then in their early career already uh, they can be easily differentiated in their personality, in their attitude, when you compare to the other speakers. And then I also want to talk about a couple of people as proven faculty leadership stories. So Dr. Punagai is a professor in SRMC, my alma mater. And so when I was doing my MD pharmacology, she was assistant professor. And I really want to take her example to show you guys how simple and easy it is to be a leader. I really respect her for one fact. So when I was in my MD pharmacology, there were a lot of faculty students in sorry, a lot of faculty in SRMC who were on one type of mindset that, okay, so you are coming here, you need to read pharmacology, read Goodman Gilman, write exams, etc., etc. But I wanted to try different things. So the only thing that Punaga madam did is, like, she didn't object me. So she took a neutral position. Okay, so Srikant, if you want to try this, go ahead and try this. And then she supported me or encouraged me in a way that, okay, so you do this and I won't create any issues from my side. So if there are any classes that you need to take on this particular day, but then if you're working on this project, it is conflicting, you just tell me, I'll somehow figure it out. So this is what Punaga madam helped me 12 years back, and I have utmost respect to her right now, because I can tell you that those few days that I did something different in my MD days has really impacted my first 5 to 7 years of career once I got out of this medical college. And so I really owe a lot of my initial success to such faculty who have really supported and took a neutral. You don't really have to push people in that direction, just release them and then the students can do anything. So as long as you, even if you take a neutral position, that is also good enough to become a true leader, right? So I'm taking only few names here because these are the people that I personally worked with, but there are much more leaders, I'm pretty sure, similar stories. So I don't mean that people who are much more popular in academia setting, there are also faculty people who are leaders. So and we would like to see more and more type of people like that. So this is my last slide. So for those who really would like to read a little bit more, so this is something that I found on the internet. I briefly went through the book. I have a e-copy of it, and it is really good. It not only talks about this the student part as well, but it also talks about, if I'm a professor, how do I become an academic leader from other faculty perspective, other departments perspective, from administration perspective. So this book really gives a lot of tools as well on top of it. And also a disclaimer, I don't receive any kickbacks. I just saw this book, I liked it, and I'm sharing. So there is no conflict of interest here. So well, that is where I'll stop, and I'll look at the comments if there are any questions that I can address here. So I don't see. I see two comments from Shubhrajyoti, who says, I believe that self-confidence and respect and love for one's subject is very important to be a leader. Somehow I have seen that in academia, pharmacology faculty are not very proud or fond of their own subject, leading to passage of negative vibes among the students and other co-faculty. What are your thoughts on this? So so Shubhra, we have been talking about this for a decade, right? So I really remember similar conversations we had when both of us were students. It's a pity to see that even after a decade, things have not really transformed much. So my thoughts are like this. So if I go back to my disclaimer slide, so let me go back there. Right, so you see, there are different types of mindsets. So there are people who don't like pharmacology, but then they're just there in the department for whatever reason. So then personally, my way of dealing with that is, if someone has a negative vibes on the pharmacology project as a subject, it is their problem. So it is not my problem. If I like pharmacology, either basic pharmacology, clinical pharmacology, or applied pharmacology, I believe in it. And when I talked about two concepts, right? So one is student centric teaching methods, and then the other one is don't push whatever you like. If I like chicken biryani and if my student is vegetarian, if I'm saying that vegetarian is bullshit, chicken biryani is the best one, it's so odd, right? So when you think about different contexts, it really feels so odd. But in education it's not really that different. So if you like chicken biryani, that is your taste. If someone else likes vegetarian food, South Indian thali, it's their choice. Let them live with their choice. You don't need to rub your chicken biryani on someone who likes a vegetarian thali. Both are good. Both have their own reasons, but let them do their own job. And I see another one. Shubhra also says, great recipe for developing leaders in academia. Thank you for a nice and crisp presentation. Hoping leadership skills become a mandatory training course in MBBS course and MD course. I really hope so too. Thanks, Shubhra. I hope people and senior leaders are listening or will listen the recorded version of it. Yes, so I have my own position on training curriculum in India. So there are some people that have their own reasons why they want to see MD Pharma curriculum like this. I cannot change that. What I can change is at an individual level. So I just go by Gandhism, Mahatma Gandhi, who simply says, be the change that you would like to see in this world. So if you want people to become leaders or do try different things, we don't have to wait for ICMR or MCI to release guidance and a training curriculum. You just do it. You do it, and others, this kind of positive behavior is very contagious. You do it, and then others will follow you. They will try to replicate it. And we have seen in the last 2 to 3 weeks. So one person does it, the entire there are a lot of people follow it. You have seen when Indian Prime Minister called for the claps or diya and all those things. You do it, and everyone else will follow. And then I have a question from Sanjana Prakash, sir. What are the scope for after MD pharmacology? So this is slightly out of scope for today's session. So I'm happy to discuss about the scope after MD pharmacology, maybe offline. But I'll look for other questions which are related to the leadership competencies and the topic of discussion. So Haripriya says, how can a student by him or herself develop such leadership skills, whomever may be the coach? So that's a good one. In a lot of medical colleges, if I go back to the same stereotype, so there will be faculty who are supportive, who are neutral, and who are not supportive, right? So if again, this is my own personal opinion, if student is really self-driven and self-motivated, and I live in Germany, right? So I've been living here for 4.5 years now, and I've been interacting with people who are on the student life. So Munich is a great place for universities. There are a lot of students. When I went and talked to them, so how is your student life? So if you're doing masters for 2 years, what exactly do you do apart from reading books? And I see a lot of people, not all, but most of them are self-driven and self-motivated. So as a student, rather than expecting someone else will show you the path, you know a change will come only when you yourself has to decide that I want to do this, and be very stubborn that I really want to do this, and try to gather more information and try to develop in that one. So yes, the real world is not easy. Life is not fair. It is always unfair, and you will always end up with people around you who will discourage you. But the real leader, the true leader, will only evolve when they are able to endure that adverse scenarios. Otherwise, you always spend your rest of your life as a victim complaining about others. That's not going to help in becoming a leader. Okay, so the next question is from Imbas Academy. Probably Natesh copied it from their forum. So how can students develop leadership skills traits irrespective of their guides and teachers? Good question. Let's talk about a scenario. Okay, so let's say a random medical college in a random place in a random state. You have one HOD, two professors, and five associate assistant professors, and none of them are supporting. Okay. If the student is really self-driven, this coach need not be from the same department. A coach or a mentor can be from an adjacent department, because we are not talking about pharmacology here, right? So what you are talking about is to develop an EQ using some projects. So if you want to do that, it need not be from your own department. So try to look for people, network, and try to look for people who are a bit open-minded and a bit experienced in dealing with people. So this can be maybe another professor in the hospital side. It can be a professor in, I don't know, community medicine and physiology departments, or it can be someone from the industry, or let's say, if someone want to go into clinical pharmacology space. Sorry for putting you on the spot again, Shubro. So you can actually contact Shubro directly and ask him, can you be my coach? And I'm pretty sure Shubro will jump on it even before you complete the sentence. So there are people out there, a lot of people who would like to coach and develop people. So don't stick to your department. If people are not supportive, that's completely fine. It is their choice. But then you look for people who can support you and then stick to them. And then another question. So how can students develop? Okay, I think it's the same question. The next one is, how can assistant professors help PG students irrespective of their HODs? So there are, in the real world, there are different scenarios, different circumstances, right? So if HOD or professors are not so supportive, but then there are some assistant professors who really understand and open-minded. So it's more of what do you say, an unwritten psychological contract. So there is nothing that stops from people talking to people and trying to help each other. So just take the example of myself and Dr. Punagai. So when I was doing my MD, Dr. Punagai was assistant professor. She was like maybe around 3 years experience at that time, I don't know. So she was very young. So but imagine, after a decade, I'm still taking her name, so which means it is an assistant professor who really made a difference in my PG student life. So if the assistant professor is really open-minded and really has a will to help and grow leaders, I think there is nothing that will stop them. And then one more question: how to accept the fact that particular individual lack leadership skills and try to work as good employee and aid his or her leader? I'm not sure I understood that question correctly, Natesh. So whoever has wrote this question, please elaborate that a little bit, but I'll try to make some sense out of it meanwhile. So how to accept the fact that particular individual lack leadership skills. So, you know, my advice to all of you who are listening to this one is, don't get into judging your faculty. Okay. So you are seeing only one side of the coin. If the faculty is not supportive, he or she have their own reasons why they are not supportive. So don't get into judging others, blaming others, or pointing out others. It is not about the faculty. It is about you. If you are a student, then if you are working with 100 people, assume that 98 people will be either neutral or negative, but then there will be 1 or 2 people who will be positive. So it is your choice if you want to keep thinking that I'm with 98 people who are negative, or it's a matter of, do you see your glass half full or half empty? So I still have 2 people who are supportive, and then I'll make the most out of it, right? So please don't take it wrong. My session is not to point out the people who lack leadership skills. So they may intentionally lack leadership skills, or they lack leadership skills for the reason that they never got exposed to become a leader. Do not judge others. Work on your part. And if you are a professor or assistant professor, again, don't judge your peers. Don't judge your dean. Don't do that. So work on yourself and work on your students. I think this is the best thing that you can do. And there's a question from Nayan, pretty lengthy one. In my interactions with professors, I felt academic professors feel that once the pharma residents leave for the industry after completing their education, it leaves a void in academia in terms of succession and legacy. Hence, I feel they are reluctant to coach them to guide to industry. How do you feel? How this issue should be tackled? So, well, what you just mentioned is, you might have got to this impression based on your interactions with some of the professors, right? So again, if they have an opinion, everyone is entitled to have their own opinion. Okay, so if because of this opinion, if they are deliberately trying not to develop someone, it's a pity that there are some people like that. But as a student, if someone is self-driven, I think there is always a way to manage it. Because if someone, if I take this example, if a student is trying to get into industry, it is a fact that no matter what you do, this person will complete the course and then leave for the industry. You cannot change someone's life. You cannot control someone's life beyond certain point in time. So it's like very very short-sightedness, in my opinion. We don't live in an era where people are slaves to someone. People may think that I am your master, you are my slave, but then 2 years 3 years later, these people will go apart and they won't even see each other for maybe decades, or I don't know. So my suggestion, your question is how this issue should be tackled. I will fall back to my previous statement. So decouple what is the attitude of maybe 98 people, professors who are negative minded. There will be, find that one or two persons who are neutral or open minded and positive. Search for them, stick to them. These are the people who are leaders and who will develop more leaders. See, you cannot change someone's opinion so strongly in that span of 2 to 3 years. You should, as a student, you should really focus on developing yourself rather than trying to change someone else. So you change yours, everyone changes themselves, and then the whole group or community will change. So in the list, I see the last question from Raj Mohan: how to manage the challenge of having a mixed group of students, self-motivated students as well as those who choose pharmacology as their last option, making sure that all of them are treated equally. Okay, so here are my thoughts. If I'm a professor with this kind of mindset, it is fundamentally wrong to think that all students are equal. So all students are never equal. So every student has their own interest, has their own pace of development, speed of development, right? So if someone is self-motivated, then their ambitious goal definition. So if I go back to, okay, so let me go to this slide, this one. So if a student is self-motivated, then as a professor, it becomes easy for me. Okay, so he is self-motivated and I can believe in him easily. And then what kind of goal should I set for him? So he is very self-motivated, so his goal should be really ambitious. If I go back to the example of Shubhro Jyoti Bhaumik, so if Shubhro is basically right now setting up a task force in West Bengal, in Kolkata, for dealing the COVID situation, if there is a self-motivated one, now I will give him a goal which is more or less similar to what Shubhro is working on right now. But then at the same time, if there is someone who has chosen pharmacology as his last option, then okay, so this person is not so ambitious, but then this person must be interested in something which is directly or indirectly related to pharmacology, right? So we need to explore and understand where this the interest of this student lies, and then start from there. So I didn't put it in the slide, I should have done that, but from pharmacology centered teaching methods, please switch to student centric teaching methods. Okay, so there are enough examples where people did MD pharmacology, and then after some time they completely gone out of the space of MD pharmacology. So randomly thinking about Somnath Datta. So he did MD pharmacology. Right after MD, he did ISB MBA, and then he joined in the pharma space. But everything he does is commercial marketing. So in his role, he's not expected to know about pharmacology. Of course, being a pharmacologist, it adds a little bit advantage to other marketing leaders there. But then he is not expected to be in pharma space. He's more in the marketing and commercial space. So there might be students who took this as a last option, and then their interest could be something entirely different. I can take one more example. There is a student right now who's called whose name is Raj Pushpa. So this person is doing MD pharmacology, but he is completely technology freak. So he talks about machine learning, artificial intelligence. And if I am in his department, what I would do is, okay, so you are in pharmacology space. Let's get started with a project which is on artificial intelligence. It may be related to pharmacology, or it may be related to some neurology or psychiatry, doesn't matter. As long as I'm giving something to Raj Pushpa in artificial intelligence space, which is directly or indirectly related to human medicine, general medicine, that will keep his interest up and running. Okay, so try to see students uh, as per their interest, and then it has to be a custom made plan. There is no one plan or one size fits for all. I see one more question. How can an aspiring leader develop critical thinking? So critical thinking is a very tricky part. So I'm taking my slide to this checklist. So the Tegensi's checklist you see here, right? So here under critical thinking, you see few things here, but then this can be a good starting point on how do you develop critical thinking. So remember one of the previous slide that I said, when you talk about these soft skills, including critical thinking, this is not something that you will read in a book and then develop. You can attend trainings, Coursera, LinkedIn, national conferences, international workshops. It will only give you the IQ component of critical thinking. If you really want to be a critical thinker, you need to do something. So you of course attend and then learn these webinars, from these webinars, courses, etc. You talk to people, you try to understand what critical thinking is, but then you start a project and then start doing things by critically thinking. First time you will fail, I can tell you. Second time, it may be slightly different. It may not be better, it may be different. But then keep practicing these soft skills. That is when you will slowly get hold of this particular skill. You will become an expert over a period of time, and then you will slowly become a critical thinker, good critical thinker, or a great critical thinker. It all depends on how much you practice these skills, and how much you solve problems using critical thinking. So this is the reason why the fantastic opportunity for someone who is in academia is, if you have in your department 6 PG students. So when I'm working on these 6 students, all of them are working in each project, so 6 projects. So as a professor or associate professor, so I am getting this fantastic opportunity to apply these soft skills of critical thinking, problem solving, on 6 projects at the same time. So it just amplifies, right? So in 2 years, you basically have practiced your critical thinking skills 6 times compared to your student who is still working on one project. So the more and more you put your students on these projects, your student develops, but you also develop in an exponential manner. Okay, I see more questions coming. Um, how to form a team of non-doctors for problem solving while working in academia? Let me pick an example. So to start with, how to form a team, you just network, you just go and talk to people. Okay, so how to form a team, it depends on the what kind of problem that you are talking about. So let's say I'm trying to think about a real example that I came across in my um, this thing. Okay, so let's go back. So when I was in my MD days and immediate post MD days, so I was talking to a professor in cardiology and cardiology and pulmonology, I think, in that space. So this professor said that, I've been working on patients with myocardial infarction, and I have a large amount of data which is in my case sheets. And my problem is, if I can have this data in something like a database. Of course, I'm talking about 2007 and 2010. You don't really have electronic health records at that time so abundantly available. So this was his problem. I have case sheets, but I can really perform a lot of trend analysis, publish papers, and look into some within ST segment elevated myocardial infarction. But my problem is the data is not usable in its format. So one way of dealing with this is, okay, so if I want to convert this data into usable format, how many people do I need? Maybe 3 to 4 people. Is there a need that all these 3 to 4 people need to be doctors? Absolutely not. Even someone who is M.Pharm or even MSc, BSc, if they have the right mindset, can also do this. So what you can do if you are in that situation is, okay, so who's dealing with this case sheets? Someone in the ward. And then let me go and pick someone who is maybe a preclinical PG student, or some guy who's doing MSc who has access to this, and then I'll get hold to someone who is good in transcribing things into electronic format, and then I'll speak to someone who can compile this different data once it is in electronic format in a way, maybe in Excel sheets or in databases, SAS data sets, or I don't know, nowadays you have R and Python and all these things. So you talk to a statistician, a programmer, someone who is good in transcribing, and then someone who has access to this case sheets. There you go. You have a team of 5 already, and then you say that, okay, so let's work on this in 3 months to convert 500 case sheets into a database. So that's a problem solved already, right? So when you're working on this, you can go back and see how these four C's can be implemented, and you'll really simply see that it's not that difficult. It's only about intention to do it, and then do it repeatedly. That is what is required. Raj Mohan comes again. So what kind of part-time opportunities can students take up during residency to help them develop skills for future, which they may not gain from the institute? So part-time opportunities is a different thing. So look at it from a different perspective. So what I'm talking about is, you have your thesis, your exams, but I'm talking about doing something different apart from what you are doing. So this is, I'm putting a framework of a project to it, right? So this project can be a standalone, something like you are talking to another cardiology professor that I just say, and then you basically do it like a side project. But depending on the problem that you are seeking, it can also be an opportunity, or a part-time job. So it really depends. So don't my suggestion would be, don't look for part-time opportunities, look for problems. So go outside your department, talk to people, and try to understand where people are struggling, and then pick a problem and then solve it. Part-time jobs is not a solution to develop leadership skills. And then Sharan Kumar KB, nice talk. My question is, PGs must have training or industry exposure during their PG tenure. PGs are not exposed much. Yes, I agree. But again, this is also, what I would say is, industry training or industry posting is an opportunity to get these leadership skills, but there is no guarantee that if a student is posted in the industry they will automatically develop leadership skills. I have seen people in the last 4 to 5 years, they go to industry posting, they go to the company, they sit in a classroom, and then they hear lectures from the people who are working in the industry. The only difference that is happening is instead of a classroom in a medical college, the classroom is in a company, in a multinational company. That's not really helping. So irrespective of industry posting or training, which is a different topic altogether, so you can always look for problems around you, make it as a project, try to apply these 4 C's in the project, and then start training on your leadership skills. And again, so I see a lot of comments on the industry. I really want to mention this once again. This leadership concepts that I talked about is not specific to the industry alone. So someone who is working in the hospital, someone who is working in academic research, like probably Tata Memorial Cancer Institute, or someone who's working entirely in academia, like Dr. Punagai, or it can be for anyone. This leadership concepts can be utilized to anyone in the industry, outside industry, academia, research, academic research, whatever it is. Good. So I don't see any other questions then. So probably I will close the session, and so I'll share this slide deck. I'll send this to Natesh, and Natesh will put it on so that everyone can have this access to it. So once again, thank you very much, Natesh and Impa, for giving me this opportunity and sharing this my experiences and the concepts that I have learned. I only hope that people will get inspired by these stories that I mentioned today and concepts. You have any questions, you can always contact me. And my only wish or request to you is be open-minded, try to become leaders, and develop more leaders. The more and more leaders you develop, the more and more positive influence you're going to have in this world. So all the best for that, and thank you so much.